Yo you! Yeah you! Do you love senseis but can't afford the duplicates? Or too ignorant to use .sky files or NFC cards? Well, this video is for you. Alright, picture this. You just got a new sensei, and, well, you've been playing him for a little bit. You're enjoying him. Let's say it's Wolfgang. And you realize that, oh, you're now in the path section. Well, what do I choose? Well, now you either gotta pick, hope for the best, because guess what? Imaginators got rid of the best thing they added to superchargers, the best, like, feature, which was the ability to switch paths with any Skylander. I mean, that was such a good rant. Anyway, no. Let's forget about that. Superchargers added the best thing, which is the ability to swap paths with any Skylander, and then Imaginators just get rid of that. Why? Okay, sorry for that little rant, but anyway, the thing about senseis is that they suck for trying to get upgrades. The game makes all upgrades expensive. You don't have any sapphires. Sky Reader, you can't use Sky Reader on a sensei because it will brick it. And there's other annoying stuff that just makes senseis a hassle to upgrade. So a lot of people ask me, well, what's the best path for this sensei? And I actually do get that question quite a lot, mainly DMs, but blah blah. So I decided to make a video to just give you every answer, just the one answer that you need for the best path. This is an objective list, completely objective, and if you're looking for a fun path, I'm sorry, but I can't give you the fun path. I can only give you the objective one. But other than that, I hope you enjoy this video. I just want to point out that I will be doing every single one of these senseis in the same battle, just to make it as fair as it could possibly be. I will be doing this in the same fight. This is the future fight in the abandoned amusement park. I do believe this is the hardest regular fight in the game. There's a lot of factors to that, but I do think it's a good playing field to test out these Skylanders and to show you what they can do. I also want to clarify that there will be timestamps for every single sensei section, so you can just jump cut to the path that you need to know. Also, this video is a tribute to the absolute GOAT, the originator, the man himself, W. Drums. This video is for you. Alright, so for Chaos, you're gonna want to be running the bottom path, aka the Doomlander path. So, what's important about this path is that the Doomlanders, well, obviously the Doomlanders, they do a lot, and you're going to want to make sure you have them up at all times. You're going to try and be using your Doom Fists. They're also really important. They actually stun enemies. Now, a lot of people would say, well, no, they do that on the top path. Here's the thing, though. The Doom Fists still stun, even when not on the top path, which is a bit weird, but I'll take it. One important thing about Chaos is that his portals will actually knock back enemies, and this is very important for the rat enemies, especially, and the sheep. So not only does his portals do damage, the Doomlanders do all the work. You do your Doom Fist. If you can get a swipe in with your primary, I do recommend that, since the bottom path will have a chance to slow enemies whenever you strike them with your primary. And another important thing about Chaos is that never use his soul gem. Next up is Airstrike. For Airstrike, you're going to want to be running the top path. The top path has this electric aura that you get every time you do your secondary, which is going to be extremely important for just about every fight you're going to be doing with your melee. So the electric aura pretty much stun locks everything as long as you're close to it. You can see right here in the gameplay footage, I'm really close to these enemies and I'm just meleeing them all the time, and they really can't do anything about it. I do recommend getting the soul gem. The soul gem is very useful. It gives you invincibility, and you do a slam on the ground that does a bunch of damage, knocks enemies up into the air. You want to avoid using your main primary when you're not in your secondary mode. It can be a little finicky. You mainly want to be in your secondary mode as Airstrike. I highly recommend avoiding the third move entirely. It's very, very risky to use. Alright, next up is bad juju. So for bad juju, you're going to want to be running the bottom path. This path gives you invincibility, which is very nice. It gives you the curse, this move called the curse. Basically, every time an enemy, you can strike an enemy with mini juju and they will turn blue. And every time you hit a blue enemy, other enemies that are blue will also take that damage. So it's like a curse effect, pretty much, a linked damage sort of curse effect. The most important thing about bad juju is the use of the soul gem. The soul gem will definitely carry you in most fights. It can stun lock enemies and it has ridiculous damage. Another thing about bad juju is that the soul gem will auto send out mini juju, meaning whenever you're ready to call him back in, you do get that invincibility. So that's another thing you gotta make use of. But bad juju is easily one of my favorites and definitely one of the most underrated senseis of all time because people just don't know how to use her. Anyway, enjoy the rest of the footage. For wildstorm, you're going to want to use the bottom path. Very important. So for wildstorm, see, here's the thing. Wildstorm was great, but I feel like he could be better. The thing that's important about wildstorm is that his clouds can actually die if you're not fast enough with setting up the electric clouds, but other than that, I do think wildstorm is pretty good. You want to try and use your secondary a lot because the secondary is like the main, like, I mean, it does a lot. That's what I will say. It does knockback, it does solid damage, and it has a lot of area coverage. I do say go bottom path mainly for that triple lightning strike with the secondary. The roar is really important to set up the clouds. If another way to set up the clouds would be holding the secondary. I do think that's another good way of setting up the clouds because the clouds can be very finicky to set up and again they can die. But see, I never really used the soul gem in the gameplay footage, but I do think the soul gem can help in very certain situations. I have been told by other good players that it can be good for picking off very small groups at a time, which is really, really helpful. For wildstorm's primary, I'd say go for a single strike at a time. Don't play too risky with it, and whenever an enemy does get close, I do recommend just using that secondary to bump them back a little bit, and it can be really, really safe. Alright, next up is Hood Sickle. For Hood Sickle, you're going to be running the top path. If there's one thing I will say about Hood Sickle is that he's a very difficult character to use. You do need to make use of just about everything in his toolkit. You want to be mainly using the dash to build up your more damage, more utility for the primary. The primary on the top path will actually reflect projectiles, which is really, really important. But you do need to have the maxed out primary to be able to do that, and yeah. Another thing you want to make use of is the soul gem. The soul gem can be good for picking off a little bit of chip damage at range, very helpful. And another thing you want to make use of is the knockback wave that you get from the top path. That can be really, really important. For StarCast, you want to be running the bottom path. Thank you to Crystal for getting the footage for StarCast. Big shout out to you. So for StarCast, spam that clone whenever you can. The more your clone is out, the more you're going to survive, let's just say. The clone can do a lot. It can knock back enemies. It can do a lot of single target damage. It makes you do critical hits a lot more frequently, which is another big thing. You want to avoid using the soul gem as StarCast for as long as possible. Another thing you want to avoid doing is using the secondary. The secondary is super useless. Just super useless. It's just never going to help you in a fight. So yeah, just put your clone down. Clone placement can actually be really, really important. So if you're going to use your clone, put it in the crowd rather than away from it. And stand still from a side and spam that primary, which is another really important thing. Enjoy the rest of the footage. For barbella, you're going to want to be running the top path. I actually don't hate the bottom path. It's actually quite interesting. It doesn't do enough to justify using it over the top path, but barbella surprised me in this fight because barbella can stun enemies, which is really, really important. So you want to be using your secondary a lot. Stunning enemies is just huge. It's insanely huge. Another thing you want to use is the block. The block can actually be really, really helpful. It does a lot of knockback. You want to be using your primary for very situational times. It can be helpful. Another thing I found out is that you can actually just use the blocks to just, well, literally block enemies. And they will take constant damage, which is really, really funny. I do recommend, before starting fights, that you power yourself up using the soul gem, which can also be really helpful with the fights. But, yeah. No, barbella was very, very solid for this fight. I did not really expect that, but, she did excellent. She did very excellent. And enjoy the rest of the footage. Next up is Golden Queen. So for Golden Queen, we're going to be running the bottom path, the turret path, if I'm not mistaken. Wow, this one surprised me a lot. Golden Queen did excellent in this fight. You mainly want to be putting up your turrets, using your secondary to just completely freeze the enemies. And while the enemies are frozen, put up your turret, strike your turret to do that a little bit extra damage. I was a very low level, and I was still destroying these enemies. I do think Golden Queen is a very, very underrated Skylander, or Sensei, overall. But she did very excellent, so I don't really know what to say for Golden Queen other than just use your secondary at the right moments, or just you could just spam your secondary for infinity, and you will survive any fight, pretty much. There are some enemies that are actually immune to that secondary, in which case, use your turrets. Your turrets are very, very good. They have very solid DPS. And your primary is very solid. I do recommend using the primary as just slowing down enemies rather than to do damage, because your turrets will be doing most of the heavy lifting anyway. But use your primary to slow down enemies, strike your turrets, use your turrets to take care of any enemy, really. And then use your secondary if you're ever caught in a tough situation, or if you just want to destroy everything, pretty much, because it's just the stun and the freezing is just incredible. Golden Queen is amazing. Enjoy the rest of the footage. For tri-tip, you're going to want to be running the top path. So this one was very scary to try and pull off. Tri-tip is horrible. Yeah, he's really, really bad. His dash, well, I mean, it actually did really amazing there, as you saw there. But the thing about his dash is that it doesn't knock enemies back. It just pushes them. So while you're dashing into them, enemies can still hit you while you're dashing into them. Really annoying, but I'd say use the dash as more of an escape tool than anything else. The more important thing about the top hat is that you get this sandstorm ability, which has this gravity effect. I do recommend using that if you can pull it off. It is quite difficult to pull it off. Another thing about tri-tip is that his jump and his secondary at the same time will cause him to do a pound. This pound will send enemies into the air, which is actually, like, if you can, as long as you don't miss, it actually can be really helpful for stun locking enemies and dealing with them easily. Tri-tip is not the best Sensei, and I think most people would actually agree with me, but they do find him fun, and you know, if you find him fun, fair enough. But another thing about tri-tip is his fossils do stun, but they are extremely, extremely risky to pull off. Now, if I had to say something right now, it would be, if you want to win any fight with tri-tip, I say just run away all the time and use the boulder from his soul gem to your advantage. If you run away forever, that boulder will just kill them at some point. It will keep damaging them, and then eventually you'll win the fight. But if you're playing more risky than not, like I am, you're bound to at least die. But yeah, he's a mess of a Sensei. I was like 36 HP. My god, what a mess. Alright, so for Ember, you're going to be running the bottom path. Mainly get your the fire traps down, the one where you jump and then you primary and you leave like a fire trail or fire hazard on the ground. That's going to be really important for dealing with medium enemies because it slows them down, and while they're slowed down, you can then safely do your eruption attack. But yeah, I don't really have much for Ember because Ember is just so like meh. She's so meh. You want to be mainly using your eruption whenever you can. I say avoid using the primary at all times. That primary can ruin your day. The third move, I'd say use it, but only if you can get either the last stage of the third move down or the second last one with the giant ball. If you can get that down, that does knock back enemies, but the problem with Ember is that she never has anything that can deal with medium enemies, and that can be a problem. But I think another issue with Ember is that she's just not good, like, at all. In fact, she actually struggles with late game more than other senseis can. Even senseis like Crash Bandicoot. But anyway, just run bottom path. Try and safely do stuff if you can. Ember's just a complete mess of a Skylander. Just do what you can. Good luck out there. Alright, next up is Flare Wolf. So for Flare Wolf, you're going to want to be running the bottom path, and you want to make sure you never get that last upgrade, the spin upgrade. That will ruin Flare Wolf, believe me. In fact, I had to reset my Flare Wolf because it ruined her. But yeah, so for Flare Wolf, you want to mainly be using the Soul Gem. Just always. The Soul Gem is very, very good. If you can pull it off, that is. It is very difficult to put off, but you want to mainly be using your dash, the dash to keep at distances, and then use your Soul Gem when needed. The flamethrower can be handy to pick up some damage. The primary is very good, picking off damage as well. But that's really all I have to say about Flare Wolf. Just don't get that last upgrade, the spin upgrade, and you should be good to go, really. For Taekwon Crow, you're going to want to be running the bottom path. So, with the bottom path, you just spam your minions everywhere. Try and use the kick as much as you can. The kick can be really good for just doing chip damage. It's also really good for dealing with medium enemies because not only does it knock them back, it disrupts their attack, which is also really, really important. Try and get all your minions out at all times, like I said. Use your primary when needed, and that's pretty much it. Taekwon Crow is very simple, but he's very, very good. And again, keep your minions out all times, keep them fired up, do your kick when needed, and boom, easy peasy. Alright, for ambush, you're going to want to be using the bottom path. So, the thing about ambush is that the dash is very important for dealing with a lot of these dudes. Another thing about the bottom path is the aura. You get the bamboo aura. That's also really helpful. But you're mainly going to be using that dash. The dash with the explosion at the end can only be done on the bottom path, and it's insanely useful. I cannot stress enough how useful this is. The blast and the bamboo itself will actually stun enemies. Another great thing about this path is the ability to shoot out all the bamboo. That's another great one. It can push enemies back. It can do damage. It's really great. It's really great. But you're not really going to be using the primary that much as a knight. You think you'd be using the sword a lot more, but he doesn't really use it. Sometimes I use it for the stance, the one that gives you extra damage for your primary. I really use that, but it can be good for picking off big enemies. But again, use that dash a lot, stun all the enemies, try and get the aura if you can. It's also really useful. The soul gem can be quite useful as well. And that's pretty much it. For boombloom, you're going to want to be running the bottom path. Now, here's an interesting one. See, I see a lot of people running the top path, and I'm just kind of confused because either they see it and think it's the better one, or they just don't bother with the bottom path and try it out. But yeah, I can confirm right now, the bottom path is definitely the better one. It's incredible how good it is. So you're mainly using it to push back enemies, but you're also going to be using it for crowd control and crowd damage. Another good thing is the soul gem. Soul gem is incredible, really good, really useful for this path as well. The primary, you're not going to be using the primary too much, but you are going to be mainly using that secondary a lot because that path is amazing. You're going to be using the third attack as well, just to get a little bit of that chip damage off. And yeah, boombloom. There you go. That's boombloom for you. Obvious one, but for chompy mage you want to run the top path. I think everyone knows this at this point. The chompy minions are just all around great. What surprised me the most is that Chompy Mage really didn't do that well in this fight. In fact, I actually struggled a lot, but other than that, I think this path is definitely the way to go. And that's really all I have to say. I do think that jumping and using your primary is very important, because you can get a little bit of extra attack speed in there. I'd say use your puppet, actually. The puppet can actually be quite helpful. It does knockback, so rat enemies about to attack you, I say use the puppet. The charge move with the staff is actually really good as well. You'll see me use that a little bit. And another thing is the chompy pile. The chompy pile is good for a dash. It's good for just a quick, easy amount of damage. It's also good as knocking back enemies if you do the soul gem. So that's really good. But enjoy the footage. For Crash Bandicoot, you're going to want to be running the bottom path, the crate path. Wow. Crash Bandicoot he's good. I like him. He's actually not as bad as people make him out to be. Especially in this fight, he does pretty well. He does pretty well. So you're mainly going to be just circling around enemies, doing the crates over and over, spinning them around. And this path is such a good combo with the soul gem, because it gives you more chances for the soul gem to show up. And the soul gem is very useful. It gives you invincibility, and you do a ton of damage to like a small group of enemies, which is really nice. Another helpful thing is the dash. Crash Bandicoot's dash can actually get him out of situations nicely. Jumping on a crate is another nice thing you can do. It actually knocks back enemies, which is really useful. I'd say never use the primary to attack an enemy just like on its own. It's terrible. I say use the crates always. The kick slide that he does like at the end of his slide, that can knock back an enemy. That's another really useful thing I recommend doing. Other than that, Crash is actually really good. He's deceptively bulky. Like, I have 4 lives here, but that just means that I can tank 4 of the strongest hits in the game and survive, pretty much. That's another way you can look at it with Crash Bandicoot. Where, like, Grave Clobber, he can't really tank a 999 hit, but Crash with 2 lives can. So, I guess you could view it like that. So, Crash Bandicoot, he's solid. He's actually very solid. He did a lot better in this fight than actually most other senseis, which is kind of crazy to think because he's one of the most hated ones. But yeah, enjoy the footage. For Aurora, bottom path. I think this one was another obvious one. I mean, the speed, yeah, it's pretty helpful, but it's actually really good for combat as well. This one genuinely surprised me, but I do have the elemental bonus damage, so I guess that kind of plays into the factor, but I mean, other than that, yeah. Yeah, Aurora, she's fine. I don't think she's one of the best senseis, but she's fine. She did fine this fight, but all I can really say is that use the soul gem if need be. It's very can be risky to pull off, but it can help you out in fights. I say use your secondary pretty much all the time, and hit the enemy with your primary whenever you get the chance. The thing about Aurora in the bottom path is that you do get a critical chance guarantee after you dash, which is quite helpful. Another thing about the dash is that it will knock over medium enemies, so that's another big thing. Other than that, enjoy the footage. For Blastertron, you're going to want to run the bottom path. So for Blastertron, get that bubble down as fast as you can because it's going to help out a lot. Another big thing about Blastertron is that he's one of the only characters to get combos before a path, which is kind of cool. So that combo that I done to the enemy at the start, it can stun enemies, and because he always has that, he can always stun enemies no matter what path he's on, which is really useful. The other combo is good for knocking back enemies into the air, which is really nice. But you always want to have that bubble out as much as you can. Another big thing about Blastertron is his holding combos for his primary. They can do knockback. It's another big one. But yeah, Blastertron was amazing for this fight. Again, elemental bonus damage. But yeah, the stun helped out. The bubble helped out. It does, it just does a crap ton of damage. The knockback helped out. It's just able to hit all the enemies outside of the arena. The rockets helped out as well. The rockets were very helpful. They just did a bunch of damage at once, and it's really good use with the bubble. But yeah, Blastertron is great. Enjoy the rest of the footage. For buckshot, you want to use the top path. So main rule for buckshot, always be in your portal mode. You're invincible, which is very nice. You can stun enemies whenever you hit them with your portal or come out of your portal. That's another big thing. The reason this path is the better one mainly is because for its single target damage. The bottom path is great, but it's really bad for damage. It's horrible for damage, in fact, but it does have like a shock effect that stun locks them, which is really helpful. But this path is definitely the way to go, since not only do you stun them anyway, but the sheep do really good like lock-on damage, and they do constant damage at the same time, which is really useful. You actually don't really want to use his main gimmick that much, which is shooting into the portals and, doing extra damage on the other side. You really don't need to do that. You can just be in your portals the whole time and just finish every enemy off at once. That's pretty much it for buckshot. Is a third attack, it can be helpful, I mean, I guess, but again, just be in your portals the whole time and you will be easy winnings, or whatever it is. for mysticat, you want to be running the bottom path. The bottom path is amazing. Top path is good, don't get me wrong, just solid primary, extra damage, blah blah. But the bottom path does everything right. It has great area coverage, great just burst damage, great crowd control. It's just insane DPS. It's so good, and this, I think, this path definitely puts him at like top 10 best senseis, because he's just incredible on this path. You can blame Boombringer for making people think that this dude is like garbage, I guess. Also Cloudbreaker, that dude, bruh. I don't think he even knows how to use mysticat or like any other Skylander. Bro thinks Mysticat's doo-doo because, well, he's bad at the game. Nah, I'm joking. But Mysticat's great. Mysticat's really good. I highly recommend getting Mysticat and then going this bottom path. The bottom path is incredible. But yeah, enjoy the rest of the gameplay. Alright, so for Pinata, you want to be running the bottom path. So, first of all, let's talk about the extra lollipop you get that you can smash. The ability is that you take less damage, pretty much. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. I mean, less damage, you can't go wrong. But the biggest thing about this path is the minions, the pinatas. They just destroy everything. They do all the work. They're incredible. Use your secondary. I highly recommend using the secondary a lot because it does stun enemies, and I think it's a very, very underrated move for Pinata. Another thing is the candy laser. I'd say use that when the time is right. If you pull it off at the wrong moments, you can definitely get yourself killed, but at the right moments, it can carry a fight, definitely. But yeah, that's pretty much it for Pinata. Oh yeah, never use that the soul gem. Never use the soul gem. The soul gem's horrible. And enjoy the rest of the gameplay. For chain reaction, you want to run the bottom path. So inventions, they're very good. Just that shockwave, man, that shockwave just insane. Just free damage from pretty much an infinite like distance, which is really nice. You want to mainly use your third move because it's just invincibility and damage that shocks enemies and stun locks them. I mean, chain reaction is just incredible. Another thing you can do is the holding the primary move. That can be really good for stun locking and doing a lot of damage to medium enemies, which is really good against rats and sheep and stuff like that. The invention you can spam and it will do the explosion, which also knocks back enemies, which is really good. I'd say keep your invention out at all times. That it's just incredible. Your primary, I'd say never use the regular primary swipe. I'd say use the hold one instead. But yeah, chain reaction is incredible. I highly recommend them. For Krankcase, I highly recommend using the bottom path. It's incredible. The bots will do a lot of the heavy lifting, but another part of the heavy lifting will come from your soul gem. The soul gem is incredible. There's a thing you can do with the soul gem where if you jump, hold to do the soul gem, and then jump, you will actually be able to fire it off a lot quicker than normal, which is a really nice thing you can do. And the soul gem is just it carries a lot of the fights. But another thing that carries a lot of the fights, the bots. The bots are incredible. They do a ton of damage when they expire, and Krankcase just becomes an S tier sensei because of this. He's definitely in the top, I'd say 15, maybe top 10 for most people, and he's incredible. You never really want to be using the spin. I'd say use the spin to get away rather than to attack, obviously, but I'd say jump and spin for escaping, doing the jump tech for the soul gem to make it fire quicker, and get them bots out as fast as you can. The bots can also really carry fights. They do have aggro, which is really helpful, but yeah, Krankcase is amazing. Alright, next up is Neo Cortex. For this, you're going to be running the top path. And I'm just going to say it right now, Cortex, S tier sensei. Incredible sensei. Definitely one of the best ones out there. Definitely takes, without a doubt, the most skill to use. This guy takes insane skill. But if you can get him down, you can definitely win some fights. You can definitely win some levels, and this definitely was my best attempt, but it's pretty solid. It's a pretty solid fight. But Cortex, you mainly want to be getting that staff down on top of enemies whenever you can, or wherever the enemies are going to push towards you. And you want to try and get the buff you get from the staff as well to shoot multiple shots at once. It's really nice. You want to try use the mask to push back enemies if they're about to hit you. That's another big thing you can do. You never want to use the vehicle, the little surfboard he has. That's not very useful. The mines are really useful. Mines can just stun lock them in the air while you can keep shooting them. It can be really useful. Cortex, man, I wish people just knew how to play him. They just don't. They can't be bothered, man. But Cortex is great. He's really great. I do. He's very cheap, Sensei, as well. So I'd say pick him up. But not everyone. It's not everyone's cup of tea. But I do think Cortex is really fun when you can give yourself a little bit of a challenge. But he actually does really great as well. So yeah, enjoy the rest of the footage. Alright, next up is the big man Robo himself. Alright, so for Robo, you want to be running the bottom path. Mainly for that laser, man. That laser is just some ridiculous damage. But the main combo you're going to be doing is the laser to the roll. The laser to the roll just... I swear at one point it did like 1,700 damage to like an enemy in like Lost Imaginary Minds when I was playing it. I was so like, what the heck? What? This dude does ridiculous damage. But yeah, so for medium enemies, I'd say the combo you want to go for is laser primary. You can keep them at bay, and it does a lot of damage. The laser move, the mega laser he does, I'd say only use that when you absolutely have to. It does slow down enemies, which is quite nice, but I'd say it can be a little bit dangerous to use if you don't know what you're doing. I'd say, yep, keep using the laser to roll whenever you can. Another one you can do is the just laser to laser to laser. You can keep doing the laser over and over, and it just keeps doing a ton of damage. But yeah, this path is actually really good. I'd say I recommend jumping near the end of the dash, because sometimes you can get stuck, and it can actually it can lead to some bad stuff going on. But yeah, Robo is like very solid. I do like Robo. It's what, well, I used to not like him, but well, now I do. He's very good. He's very good. For chopscotch, you should go bottom path. So the big thing about this path is you get a dash. I don't think I really need to explain why that's important. I think a dash should be automatic good Skylander whenever it comes to ranking stuff. The soul gem, I sometimes I pull it off and I never get hit. Sometimes I pull it off and I do get hit. It's very finicky with how it works. But the soul gem just makes everything you do faster, which means you dash faster. So I think there's good synergy with this and the dash, definitely. But you're going to be wanting to do this dash all the time. It's basically a trap. It can do knockback against enemies whenever you make it explode. So what it does is that whenever you do the dash and you leave behind the trail, if you jump and then primary onto it, it will cause the line to explode. And this explosion knocks back a ton of enemies at a time. It does a ton of damage. Another thing about chopscotch is once you can get your minion out whenever you can, the minion can actually help out a lot. Another thing you want to do is just do your regular third move. That can slow down enemies, but I think mainly you're just going to be using the dash and then the move that explodes the line. So yeah, that's pretty much it. For pitboss, you want to be running the top path. Pitboss. Let's talk pitboss. He's just the GOAT. He's just the GOAT. I don't think I really need to explain this path that much. What I do need to know is that you can actually jump cancel the soul gem, which is really helpful. Because you can do the snake pits, you can do the soul gem into the pits, and the enemies will just take a ton of damage. Pitboss is, in my opinion, the best Sensei, and this definitely proves it because he does this fight, I believe, the fastest out of any Sensei. So if that doesn't show the incredible strength and power Pitboss has, I don't know what does, because Pitboss just has everything you could want in a Sensei. He has a very strong primary, he's got good overtime damage, he's got the ability to just cause mayhem, he can disrupt other enemies, he has a good dash. Again, he just has everything you want in a Sensei, and in my opinion, he should be the very first Sensei you pick up because he's just incredible. But yeah, enjoy the rest of the footage. For Wolfgang, you want to be running the top path. Now, this one was actually debated quite a lot. I was like, oh, bottom path is better. Wait, no, top path is better. Oh, wait, no, the bottom path is actually better because they can do this. But the thing is that both paths actually do the exact same thing, believe it or not. The only difference is that top path can slow down enemies with the dash. And that's pretty much the main reason why I chose top path, is that, well, overtime damage with the primary is just insane. The speakers, triple arrows, extra damage, the slide doing like the things that slow down regular enemies, it's all really useful. This path is also really good with the triple arrow speed tech that I found. It's a bit finicky to pull off, but like pretty much just, you know, if you get used to it, you can do it great. This path works great with it. The thing you mainly want to be doing with Wolfgang is the big arrow. The big arrow can knock back enemies, and it's really important. But yeah, this path is great. It's great overall. Overtime damage, speakers, shoot arrows. I don't think I need to explain why that's even it's incredible. Dash has a little bit more going on, and it's incredible. And then another thing I need to note: never buy the soul gem. The soul gem is doo-doo. The soul gem is terrible. But other than that, yeah, Wolfgang is amazing. For Grave Clobber, you want to go bottom path. So think about this path. It buffs the totems like crazy. They do insane damage on this path. And that's what you're going to be mainly using. You're going to be mainly using the soul gem to basically use it as a long range move, which is pretty cool. So the soul gem spawns totems and normally go flying into them and destroy them, but if you do the soul gem and then jump, you can actually turn the totems into like a range move, which is pretty cool. Another thing about Grave Clobber is that his third move can stun enemies if you land on them, which is another important thing, which is why you should go with this path, is because the wave can just sweep enemies. It's really, really good. That first upgrade, or that one upgrade where like it creates like a tide pool, that's not going to be that useful. But the totems doing extra damage, yes, that is definitely going to be useful, especially with that soul gem. It's a great combo and it does a lot of damage. Another thing about Grave Clobber is that you're not actually going to be using his primary almost really ever. I do recommend using the kick a little bit more. It does hit twice and it does a lot more DPS than the primary does. But yeah, that's all I really have to say about Grave Clobber. For Kingpen, you want to be using the bottom path. Wow, this path is amazing. So, Kingpen is another one of the couple Skylanders that got the fastest time in this fight. He just swept everything. So how this path works is you build up charges, and with these charges you can get these different kinds of effects. The last charge is the most powerful one. It spawns this big iceberg that just does like 600 damage, along with the snowballs that fire on the screen. That's like 800 plus, just instant, boom. And you get these charges by destroying your icicles, and because your dash has this icicle trail effect with this path anyway, it's a really, really good combo, and it does a lot. Of course, freezing enemies, I don't even need to explain. Freezing enemies can be so important. But yeah, Kingpen with this path is just one of the most broken senseis of all time. He's just insanely good, and he just sweeps everything off the board, and I cannot recommend this path enough. It's insanely underrated. And here we are, the last one, Tide Pool. For Tide Pool, you want to be using the bottom path. So I think a lot of people use this path anyway. I actually would be surprised if more people use top path. Top path ain't bad, but wow, that bottom path is insane. It does a lot. It does great overtime damage. It does a lot of push, a lot of knockback. It has the gravity effect where enemies are like just stuck in this one area. It's really, really great for that. Tide Pool's primary is already very, very good on its own. It just causes enemies to sometimes miss, which pretty much just means, well, more chances for you to just take less damage, which is always great. For Soul Gem, no, that's all I'm just gonna say. Just never use it. The Soul Gem is just big stinky doo-doo, but it is pretty funny. It's a pretty funny Soul Gem, I won't lie. But the main thing you want to use is the whales. Use the whales as much as you can. Get the squids out as much as you can, and do your primary. The spin on the primary, I'd say only do the spin move on the primary if you're being chased. But other than that, I'd say use the jump with the primary because you shoot faster, you do a little bit more DPS, and it has a more of a straight shot. But wow, Tide Pool was insanely fantastic on this path, and I can't recommend it enough. And that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you found it helpful, and let me know if I should do more of these in the future, because that'd be nice. But please let me know if I got anything wrong, because of course I'm bound to get at least something wrong in the video. Even while editing, I might miss something. But thanks very much. This was actually very fun to make, and probably my biggest project, at least for a while. But yeah, thanks a lot. See you guys next time.